The White House has put out a statement. I want to contrast it to what we've been talking about today, how the Biden administration has been going after U.S. journalists. From Karine Jean-Pierre on the arrest of the Wall Street Journal, American Wall Street Journal journalist in Russia. So we're deeply concerned by the troubling reports that Evan Gershkovich, an American citizen, has been detained in Russia. Last night, the White House and State Department officials spoke with the Wall Street Journal and his employer. The administration has been in contact with his family, and the State Department has been in direct contact with the Russian government on this matter to try and secure his consular access to him while he is in prison. This is the part that I think is kind of, again, where you can't have this one way or the other. The targeting of American citizens by the Russian government is unacceptable. We condemn the detention of Mr. Gershkovich in the strongest terms. But this is the key. We also condemn the Russian government's continued targeting and repression of journalists and freedom of the press. Logan, they are doing that in our own country.
Exactly.
The White House is condemning Russia, who might be more extreme in their targeting and repression. But let me tell you something. The IRS showing up at your door while you're testifying before Congress about members of Congress doing bad work, taking bad actions, is pretty darn intimidating.
Yeah, and if you're an independent journalist, you're a guy at this point relying on paid subscribers who are paying, like me, $5 a month to be a part of your Substack so you can read and listen to a podcast from a certain point of view. And they demonize even that. They demonize the concept when he was in that hearing that you're telling me you put this on whatever you call this on your Substack, and like almost made it feel like it's some fringe right-wing, site where all of us know what it is. It's just a subscription-based blog, essentially, and a place to post your podcast.
So it's just a holding place, so you don't have to create your own.
I don't know if it's liberal or conservative or whatever. All it is, it's just it's a platform to have a subscription through. It's nothing crazy, but it's mainly for the written word. A lot of it is for writing.
It shakes up journalism again. They don't like
it makes people mad. Yeah, because you're getting news from no one's vetting this. Well, he's a pretty respected guy.
Yeah.
If
you trust him, you sign up. If you don't, you don't have to.
Right. I think that's an important part of that puzzle, which is they don't like that as well. As you said, that all of these people, whether that's who's on YouTube, whether that's who's on Rumble, whether that is through Substack.
It started with people like Glenn Greenwald, who said, I don't even need to be associated with anybody. If you trust me, you trust me. If you don't, you don't. There it is.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the information.
And a lot of them are like vocally Democrats.
Yeah, or definitely liberal.
I mean, Schellenberger is.
liberal in that political sense.
I would say Taibbi is probably now on the fence, maybe just because of recent events.
He's probably rethinking.
Yeah, I think that. But definitely someone who's more socially liberal, but is also not afraid to have discussions.
In line. They're not like straight in line. They're not like Republican Party members. Put it that way.
They're like Elon.
Yeah. Again, and we're starting to see a lot more of those people interested in Republican candidates. It's kind of like what we're going to talk about with Tulsi.
But this only happened because he said the Russia investigation was a hoax.
From the beginning, he knew it was a hoax.
And because he said that, they tried to destroy his life, and they keep trying it over and over again. And you know what happens? His star keeps rising.
His name becomes bigger and bigger.
Now it's all of a sudden not the nerds like me that read Rolling Stone in the 90s. Now all of a sudden, it's everyone.
This is from Congressman Jim Jordan on this IRS targeting of Matt Taibbi. Yeah. I mean, so while they're condemning Russia, rightfully so, by the way, I'm not saying that's, again, they shouldn't be doing that. But in Karine Jean-Pierre's written statement, she says, we condemn the Russian government's continued targeting and repression of journalists and freedom of the press. While the Biden administration is you could say, the Biden administration continues to target and repress journalists and freedom in the United States. Certainly freedom of the press. Listen to Congressman Jim Jordan.
I think the context is important. Remember, the day before Mr. Taibbi testifies, we all learned that the FTC sent a letter to Twitter asking Twitter, who are the journalists you're talking to, named Mr. Taibbi personally. The very next day he testifies, and Democrat members of the committee ask him, who are your sources? Give us your sources. A direct attack on the First Amendment. And while they're asking those questions, the IRS is at his door. And think about what it meant to him personally, because they leave a note and they said, don't worry, we'll get back with you on Monday. Holy cow. I mean, this is the IRS. We all fear this agency, and they leave a note saying, we'll get back with you on Monday. What that means for a normal person who has to go through that. So this is why we want to know what's going on. And frankly, we want to know, is there a chance this is one of those new 87,000 IRS agents that the $80 billion was supposed to finance and hire? I don't know, but we want to get answers to those questions.
And I will say, Congressman Jordan, now chairman of the Judiciary Committee and chairman of that the special committee on the weaponization of the federal government, was in the trenches with us in the target of the IRS by conservative groups. And in his letter to Janet Yellen as a committee chairman, he writes that the committee, so remember, they don't have to go through a FOIA process. They can just demand the information as a congressional committee because they have oversight and the power of the purse. All documents and communications referring or relating to, I just can't believe I'm reading this again because it's a flashback to the Obama years.
It feels like you're here to
all
show from
documents
2009.
and communications referring or relating to the IRS's field visit to the residence of Matthew Taibbi on March 9th, 2023. All documents and communications between or among the IRS Treasury Department and any other executive branch entity, White House, DOJ, referring or relating, or FBI, to Matthew Taibbi. And number 3, all documents and communications sent or received by the revenue officer referring to or relating to Matthew Taibbi. And they've said you only have until April 10th to provide those documents. So we know they'll fight back against this, but ultimately here there's been that change because we're starting to see the fruits of what it meant to get back the House of Representatives, Logan, because we don't have to fight alone at the ACLJ. We have allies on the inside like Jim Jordan.
The Matt Taibbi situation, I think that to me is a big one because it's not unlike the Russia investigation where what they'll say about him is that he has some ties. I guarantee you they start having that conversation because he lived in Russia. He did live in Russia for many years. He was a reporter for the Moscow Times. As a lot of people did, by the way, in the 90s.
Who just got arrested. He was also a reporter for the Moscow Times.
So he was didn't even put that together till right now.
A lot of people did that because it was just opening and we all wanted to learn.
It was cool. It was cool to go to Russia. He also played professional baseball, I think, in Russia. Like, he had a lot of interesting things that happened in his life. And then before becoming a part of this, and again, what though ended his kind of mainstream career was not saying I support Donald Trump. He was actively, I think, opposed to Donald Trump as president. But he said, he wrote a book called The Insane Clown President about Donald Trump. But specifically said, hey, the Russia interference in the 2016 election didn't happen.
See, I use this as a point to prove who we are versus who they are. We are defenders of the ideals of our country. They are defenders of their political views. We defend Matt Taibbi just as much as we would defend the Tea Party.
Right.
They don't.
Yeah. Like I said, I read his work before this. I did not agree with most of it.
He was not a political threat to them before. Now he is.
Right.
So he's now on the enemy list. And that's how they interpret who gets constitutional rights. Are you one of their friends? Well, you get constitutional rights. Are you one of their enemies? We'll start infringing on your constitutional rights. That's the dangerous part of this idea that you're unpatriotic if you criticize the government.